I've worked in the museum sector for about 15 years now, and I took up quite a different job at Rugby League Cares, because we haven't got a museum, Rugby League, yet, but we're working towards one. And Rugby League Cares is the official kind of charity of Rugby League. It works alongside the governing body on behalf of the players and the communities. And part of its mandate is to preserve and celebrate the heritage of the sport. Now, I did, this originally just said rugby ball, but I recognise where I am in Wales, and this is Rugby League and not Rugby Union, so we'll be talking about that. So I just thought I'm here today really to talk about my PhD research. It's a collaboration between the International Centre of Sporting History and Culture at Montfort, Rugby League Cares and Sporting Heritage. And I'm looking broadly at rugby league and social inclusion. And there are four key areas which you can see up there. I'm not going to cover all of them in this presentation, you'll be pleased to hear, because I've got another 3 years to do that. So, but I think it's worth a quick discussion of the key aims of what I'm trying to do. The first one is about defining social inclusion in the 21st century and looking at how sporting heritage can play a role in that. In the museum sector, we talk a lot about social inclusion and what that means, and it's we've needed to do that since museums had to start really justifying their funding, maybe kind of 20 or 30 years ago. So broadly what I mean here in this context is the heritage sector's ability to make people's lives better, as demonstrated very aptly by Richard earlier. And what I mean is kind of to give everyone, regardless of their class, their gender, their employment status, their physical ability, to undertake meaningful engagement in their community and their society, and looking at a lasting impact that goes beyond just a good day out at a museum. And if we take this definition, how can rugby league heritage play its role in that? Secondly, the PhD is looking at the history and culture of particular sports and what role that has to play. And that's maybe interesting when we look at the difference in England between rugby league and rugby union, maybe not so much in Wales, but certainly in England. And what are the motivations and experiences of people that participate in and are stakeholders in rugby league heritage? That's something that I think, for me, is the most important thing. We talked about it earlier about how we measure culture, and I've worked in this museum sector where I can see quite often we do evaluations, but they're very often snap evaluations responding to the needs of the funder, and I'm really interested in putting that voice back into looking at how we evaluate these things. And then lastly, what is it? What makes a sporting heritage project successful? So just a quick historical note for those of you that don't know much about rugby league. It was a sport born in 1895 it split from rugby union. Sorry, it split from rugby union over a row about broken time payments. So the players that were playing rugby league in the north were largely dockers, miners, mill workers, and they said that they couldn't afford to play rugby league if they didn't get paid from taking that time out from their job. The Rugby Football Union disagreed with this, and so they broke away. So 22 northern clubs broke away into what was originally called the Northern Union. And this is the birthplace, this is the blue plaque of the birthplace at the George Hotel in Huddersfield. So it's quite a unique sport in that we know where and when exactly it was born. And with how it came about, there's a certain kind of chippiness, I think, to rugby league, and a certain very much a pride in how it was born and the roots that it has in its northern communities, largely northern communities. And it is the only major sport without its own museum, and I use major there's an official definition of major, but it is the only major sport without its own museum. So that kind of makes it difficult to there be a central pot for rugby league heritage. But what we do have is a really thriving heritage sector, which is, I think, ideally positioned to improve opportunity in lives. And we have kind of lots of different clubs and organisations throughout rugby league doing different activities which are attracting different kind of audiences. And all of these kinds of things, heritage hangouts, community plays, memories clubs, they're all going on, and it's all great. There's no one person leading that, but it's definitely thriving, and people are beginning to work together more. So I want to talk a little bit about one of my case studies for my PhD. it's called Stories to Stage, which was Heritage Lottery funded, as was, project based in the communities of Rochdale and Oldham. And at its end, it was a community play based on the recollections of memories of people with dementia and former rugby league players in Rochdale and Oldham, and the oral histories that were collected from those people. So at the start, the project consisted of doing some reminiscence therapy with people with dementia, with rugby league handling collections, a bit like the boxes that Richard was talking about, but not quite as good yet. With programs, objects, smells, noises, etc. And they took place in care homes, these sessions, and they took place at Rochdale and Oldham stadiums as well. And so people were, getting out and about and coming to the stadiums and enjoying these sessions. And staff at the care homes were left with these boxes and trained in how to use them. We also, as I said, collected about 8 kind of formal oral histories from former players that came on board with, via the Rochdale Former Players Association, and their memories and stories formed a massive part of this play, which was really fantastic. So as the project progressed, the aim was to get more people from the community involved in putting the play on, so helping with writing it. We did have a formal, we had a playwright who was helping shape it, but he wanted people in the community writing this play, so performing it, working backstage, making the tea, kind of anything. And the former players who'd originally been kind of like, no way, you're not getting me up on that stage, were actually the main actors in the end, and they loved it. But what we ended up with was a proper community cast full of young, old, men, women, rugby league fans, non-rugby league fans, ex-players, people who had acting experience, people who didn't, people's nieces, cousins, whatever. It was fantastic, and the result was a real co-produced community play called It's in the Blood. But this engagement took time. It took a long time, and it was longer than kind of had been anticipated. But the key thing that we kind of took away from that was that meaningful engagement, yes, is really hard, but when it comes to it, it's really worth doing, and I think it needs a lot of work, and people need to know that they are valued and that their memories and stories and their time are valued and that their stories mean something. So I just want to show you the beginning of it.
Doncaster from Memphis to Lisbon, 13 aside, back into time, cooks are pretty close, all the union, the line and said enough, sit up, it wasn't all the union, broke away. And though they said it wouldn't last, we're still here today, following the great escape, it's understood, and we're down to the mountain.
So hopefully that just kind of gives you a sense of kind of the excitement and the buzz that went round it. The guy that was playing the guitar only kind of joined the project. He was from Oldham. He said there was too much representation of Rochdale there, so that's why he joined the project. And then his wife came involved, and then his daughters did. So it was really good. And straight after the project, there was evaluation that was done, and these are just a few of the audience comments. Quite a few of the people who had given their memories that had dementia came to the productions and saw their own kind of stories, and that was quite moving. There was a few of them that really recognised their own stories and really enjoyed that. So these were kind of for the audiences. this was for the participants, and for me this was kind of the most important thing. This was it ended in 2017, and this was the evaluation straight away, and people loved it. People were really keen. They felt like they learned absolutely loads. They felt like one of the former players said that he felt like no one had ever been interested in hearing his stories, but they were, and he was delighted, and their families came, and it was something, just a really positive experience. But I think for me, one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of use this as one of my case studies, I wanted to see really whether there'd been any lasting impact on this. So this finished in 2017, and I wanted to see if something as good as this, that I would expect that at the time that people would be, caught up with it and think it's great and that it went really well. But 2 years later, is it still going on? And it is. There's a group of people there who are connected, and they continue to see each other. They continue to go to the young people's 21st birthday parties, the older people's wedding anniversaries. They've really, built this shared community. And one of the participants, Mary, who I interviewed a few weeks ago, said, I just feel like we did something really special together, and that's why we're all still in touch. And I think that's amazing. I think they've all learned something from each other, and they've built this group, and they're even talking about putting on a new play about different kinds of things. And I just think there's lots of long-term benefits of this, and I think it ultimately leads to healthier communities. People feel like they're involved, people feel like they've got a purpose to things, and I think it was really great. So, why did it work? I think one of the reasons was this idea that, that communities are built through shared experiences. They've done that. But the second one for me is possibly the most important. Out of 4 people that I've interviewed for this project, the participants, and then a 5th, the person that ran it, they've all used the terms, we felt it was ours. One used, we were in control of it, like you say. And I think it's that idea that it's their stories, and it's their, they wrote it, they took away from it, they added to it, they put it on. And I feel like that's so much better. That is how heritage projects should be run. It should be run as a proper co-production, and not just, we've got this idea, we've got some money, let's plonk it on and see who's, which I think, unfortunately, that is how some things are run. But I think that was the meaningful co-production, I think, was absolutely brilliant. And these are some other things. I think rugby league is so inherently rooted in both Rochdale and Oldham that even if those people didn't like rugby league, that weren't rugby league fans, they are just part of that community. That is their community, and people wanted to tell their story. So we've heard a lot about football memories from Richard, and we haven't been doing it anywhere near as long, and it's not quite as developed and involved as that yet. But I wanted to just highlight the Dewsbury Memories Club. So these people here on the left are Alison Simpson and her father Tony Boothroyd and Alison's son. And Tony had Alzheimer's. He's since died. He died last year. And I did an interview with Alison because she set up this Dewsbury Memories Club because she wanted to give her dad something to do, basically. But I think that the kind of the 3 things that for me that have come out of it, which you can't hear, but how deep-rooted rugby league is in these families. So she talks about how her dad and her granddad went to rugby league, for years and years and years, and then she, as the girl rather than the boy, because there were no sons in the family, she got on board, and then she had her sons, and she said just the delight with her dad of how much he took from going to rugby league. And when he got Alzheimer's, she said we used to, she changed her working pattern to work to give her mum a day of respite a week, and she said that they just ran out of things to do. They used to go to every museum. They used to walk with the dog for miles and miles, and just nothing interested him. And then she came to an event that we held at Heritage Quay at our archive in Huddersfield. It was an event about the Challenge Cup, and she said she hadn't seen him like that for years. She said he came home, he chatted all the way home, he chatted to his wife when he got home, and even the next day he was talking about touching the Challenge Cup and touching those things that before he'd never seen. And she said we just started to look round for other things to do, because this seemed to just bring back Dad for those few hours at a time. And it's just really moving. And I think I'm really disappointed that you can't hear it because it's not as good from me. But I just think so. It inspired Alison to set up Dewsbury Memories Club while her dad was still alive, and subsequently since he's died. And it's good. It's really good. It does. Lots of the things that we've talked about as football memories. It's targeted reminiscence. It's local geography. I think that's a great thing about rugby league. Some of these when Tony Boothroyd went to a Hunslet Memories Club, he's not a Hunslet supporter, but there were people round the table who played for Hunslet, Dewsbury, and Featherstone. It's a small sport. And it's just something meaningful to do, and it kind of really inspiring. And I think the one thing that Alison has struggled with is getting the club on board, and I think that's why in some ways it's not quite thriving yet. So we see Wigan Warriors have an amazing rugby memories session, and they released the club released their players from training to attend the memory sessions. Dewsbury aren't quite there yet on that, and I think that's hindered it in somewhat because they don't have a place to go that is the stadium, and it's obviously the stadium that sometimes it evokes those memories and things. But it will get there because I think there's a will for it to get there, and there's people that need those kinds of things. So just to conclude, I think we've talked a lot about how the positive outcomes that engaging in sporting heritage can have, and rugby league, for me, it's played and rooted in some of the most deprived communities in the UK, and these projects are attracting people that local museums are failing to attract really at the moment where we live certainly, and people that wouldn't necessarily participate in heritage projects. And I think one of the things that's really stuck out for me is that the people who are running them, they're not all museum professionals by a long way, and I think that has good and bad things, but I think that they're people embedded in those local communities. They know the people of Featherstone, they know the people of Batley, and so that when people are coming to engage with them, the trust is already there. It's built because they've been coming to this club for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and I think that's a real positive thing, and it helps inclusivity in its kind of greatest form. So thank you. Thanks for listening.